Nestled between towering cliffs and lush, verdant forests, the gorge stretched like a wound in the earth, its depths shrouded in an air of mystery. Sunlight filtered through the trees above, casting dappled shadows on the rocky banks below, where crystal-clear waters danced and sparkled. It was a breathtaking sight, a natural marvel that drew visitors from far and wide. Yet for the people of nearby Eldermere, it symbolized more than just beauty. It represented a barrier that had long kept them apart. For years, the townsfolk had relied on a treacherous winding path that hugged the edges of the gorge, forcing them to traverse steep cliffs and navigate narrow ledges just to reach the neighboring village of Rivermore. As trade and communication became increasingly vital to both communities' survival, the need for a sturdy bridge grew ever more pressing. Whispers of a bridge project began to circulate, igniting hope and excitement among the townspeople who envisioned a road to better opportunities and relationships. But this gorge was not merely an obstacle. It was steeped in legend. Tales of a fearsome troll lurking beneath its depths had been passed down for generations. The creature was said to guard the gorge fiercely, protecting its territory with an iron grip. Fear mixed with excitement as discussions began about how to bridge this natural chasm, while simultaneously confronting the challenges posed by the lurking presence below. Thus, in the heart of Eldermere, plans were laid to construct a bridge, an ambitious endeavor that would not only connect two isolated regions but also alter the course of their intertwined fates forever. The townsfolk gathered with dreams of unity in their eyes, unaware that this journey would test their courage in ways they could never have imagined. The town hall in Eldermere buzzed with anticipation, its wooden beams creaking under the weight of eager voices. Villagers filled the space, a tapestry of expressions ranging from hope to apprehension as they gathered for an important meeting. At the center of the room stood Mayor Alara, her brow furrowed as she prepared to address the crowd. She knew that the fate of their proposed bridge, and perhaps their very future, hung in the balance. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "We stand at a crossroads. The gorge has long isolated us from Rivermore, and as our need for trade and communication grows, so does our need for a reliable connection." As murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, she glanced around, noting the familiar faces of farmers, merchants, and craftsmen who depended on each other. A hand shot up from the back. It was Old Man Grimsby, known for his tales about the troll. "But what about the creature?" he interjected, his voice shaking slightly. "You know it won't take kindly to our bridge building." The room fell silent as fear settled in like a shadow. Alara nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, we cannot ignore the legends surrounding the troll," she replied. "But think of what this bridge could do. It would bring prosperity to both towns and foster friendships that have long been strained." The townsfolk began to discuss potential solutions for dealing with the troll's reported wrath while still pursuing their dream. Some suggested offerings or negotiations, while others argued for caution and respect toward whatever dwelled beneath them. As ideas bounced around like sparks in dry grass, a feeling of unity began to take root. An understanding that they would face not just a physical challenge but also a test of their collective spirit and bravery as they embarked on this bold venture together. The legend of the troll had woven itself into the very fabric of Eldermere's history, a tale that evoked both fear and a begrudging respect among the townsfolk. Known as Grolthak, the troll was said to be a towering figure, his skin rough and mossy like the stones of the gorge, with eyes that glowed like embers in the dark. For generations, he had guarded the chasm with fierce tenacity, demanding tribute from anyone who dared to approach the crossing. Old tales recounted how Grolthak had once been a protector of the realm, tasked with ensuring the safety of the lands against darker forces. However, as time passed, misunderstanding and fear from the villagers turned him into a creature of legend. Instead of seeking harmony, the townspeople began to view him as a monster to be feared. Every time a villager strayed too close to the gorge, tales of Grolthak's wrath spread like wildfire. Stories of travelers who never returned or those who reported hearing his thunderous footsteps echoing through the canyon. Despite these fears, there were whispers of moments when Grolthak had shown mercy. A few brave souls spoke of encounters where the troll allowed them to pass unharmed in exchange for offerings, gifts of food or trinkets left at the edge of the gorge. These acts of diplomacy were remembered fondly by some, suggesting that beneath his fearsome exterior lay a creature capable of understanding. As the villagers prepared to build the bridge, they grappled with this complex legacy. Would Grulthak see their efforts as a threat or an opportunity for reconciliation? The weight of his legend loomed large over their plans, forcing them to confront not just the physical challenge of the gorge, but also the deep-seated fears that had kept them divided for so long. With the decision to build a bridge firmly established, the excitement in Eldermere reached a fever pitch. Mayor Alara wasted no time in assembling a committee of skilled individuals, architects and engineers from both Eldermere and Rivermore, who would work together to design the structure that would span the gorge. As news of the project spread, the townsfolk buzzed with anticipation, eagerly discussing how the bridge would change their lives. The first planning sessions took place in the town hall, where sketches and blueprints began to take shape. The architects proposed various designs, ranging from elegant arches to sturdy trusses, each idea sparking animated debates among the villagers. "It should be strong enough to withstand anything," insisted one farmer, recalling tales of Grulthak's potential fury. Others countered that it should also be aesthetically pleasing, a symbol of unity and progress that would stand the test of time. As the designs evolved, so did the townspeople's camaraderie. Neighbors who had once exchanged wary glances now collaborated, sharing their insights on materials and construction techniques. Children gathered nearby, their laughter echoing as they eagerly anticipated the bridge's completion, envisioning themselves crossing it to meet new friends and explore unfamiliar lands. To fund the project, a series of fundraisers were organized, from bake sales to community fairs, each event bringing in not only much-needed resources but also fostering a sense of shared purpose. As the villagers worked together towards their goal, hope flourished in their hearts. Yet amidst this enthusiasm lingered an undercurrent of apprehension regarding Grulthak. The committee decided it was crucial to incorporate features that would honor the troll's territory, perhaps a designated offering spot near the bridge's entrance. This gesture aimed to acknowledge Grulthak's presence and demonstrate goodwill, reinforcing their commitment not just to building a bridge but also to forging a new relationship with the guardian of the gorge. The day had finally arrived for the construction of the bridge to begin, and the air in Eldermere buzzed with palpable excitement. Villagers gathered at the gorge, tools in hand and determination etched on their faces. Mayor Alara stood before them, rallying the workers with a heartfelt speech that emphasized the significance of their task, not just as builders of a bridge, but as pioneers forging a new chapter in their community's story. As the sun rose higher, teams of masons, carpenters, and laborers set to work, each group focused on their designated tasks. The sound of hammers striking nails mingled with laughter and camaraderie. Bonds began to form as neighbors who once barely exchanged words now collaborated harmoniously toward a common goal. They shared stories, exchanged tips on best practices, and encouraged one another through the laborious tasks. However, as the days passed, subtle yet strange occurrences began to unfold. Tools would go missing only to reappear in odd places, and some workers reported hearing distant rumblings echoing from deep within the gorge at night. A sense of unease crept into conversations during breaks. Whispers about Grulthak's displeasure floated among them like shadows. One afternoon, while a group was pouring foundations for the bridge supports, an unexpected tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. The villagers stumbled and exchanged wide-eyed glances before steadying themselves. "It's just the earth settling," one engineer assured them, but his voice lacked conviction. Yet another incident heightened tensions. A massive boulder that had been marked for removal rolled ominously down the gorge's side, narrowly missing two workers who had stepped away for a moment. It felt like a warning, a reminder that they were encroaching upon territory fiercely guarded by Grulthak. While hope for the bridge's completion remained strong, these unsettling incidents began to weigh heavily on their spirits. They knew they were not merely building over physical ground. They were traversing into a realm where myths and realities intertwined. The determination that propelled them forward now danced uneasily with apprehension as they realized that their endeavor would demand more than just hard work. It would require courage in facing whatever might come from the depths of the gorge. As the sounds of construction echoed through the gorge, deep within the shadows of his lair, Grulthak stirred restlessly. The disturbances above had not gone unnoticed. The rhythmic pounding of hammers and the distant laughter of the townsfolk pierced the tranquil solitude he had cherished for ages. With every strike, an ember of annoyance ignited within him, burrowing deeper as he felt his domain being intruded upon. His cavern rumbled in response to the vibrations above, dust falling like confetti from ancient stone ceilings. Grulthak raised his head, his amber eyes flickering to life as he listened intently to the cacophony that signaled the encroachment of these relentless humans. The troll had long been a guardian of this gorge, a territory steeped in myths and memories. Now, those who had once told tales of respect and fear were carving through it with abandon. Each night, he emerged from his lair, haunted by specters of old memories. The offerings left by those brave enough to seek pass across his domain now replaced by sounds that mocked his solitude. Unbeknownst to the villagers, Grulthak felt a bond with this land. It was as much a part of him as he was of it. And now they were disrupting that harmony. As days turned into nights and the bridge's structure began to take shape, warnings danced in Grulthak's mind. He recalled past encounters where strength had prevailed over kindness. Travelers who dared too close had faced his wrath. And now, with their incessant work, they risked awakening not just his anger but also a sense of betrayal. On one stormy evening, as lightning sliced through the sky and darkness enveloped the gorge, Grulthak made his decision. He stepped into the splintered moonlight, fury simmering beneath his rough exterior. As pieces of rock trembled beneath his feet with each looming step, he set forth toward where the bridge was rising, a titan on a path toward inevitable confrontation. They had trespassed long enough. It was time for them to understand that some barriers could not be bridged without consequences. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the gorge as the bridge construction continued. The air was thick with anticipation and anxiety, particularly among the workers who could feel a storm brewing, not just in the weather, but in the ominous atmosphere that had settled over the site. On that fateful day, as they hammered and sawed, a sudden hush fell upon the group. A deep rumble echoed through the canyon, making the ground tremble beneath their feet. The workers exchanged anxious glances, their hands pausing mid-task, hearts racing as the sound grew louder, reverberating like thunder. Then, from the depths of the gorge, Grulthak emerged. The troll loomed before them, an imposing figure silhouetted against the jagged cliffs. His skin, rough and mossy, blended seamlessly with the stone around him, but his eyes glowed like molten gold, fierce and unyielding. As he stepped forward, the earth shook beneath his weight, and a chill swept through the air, stealing the breath from the workers' lungs. Fear gripped their hearts as Grulthak's growl rumbled like an avalanche. "What are you doing in my domain?" he bellowed, his voice echoing off the cliffs and sending shivers down spines. The men stood frozen, tools clattering to the ground as they instinctively took a step back, their instincts screaming at them to flee. One brave soul, a young carpenter named Tomas, found his voice amidst the trepidation. We come to build a bridge, to connect our villages." His words trembled but held a flicker of defiance. Grulthak's gaze narrowed as he regarded Tomas with a mix of curiosity and contempt. "You think you can build on sacred ground without my permission? You invade my home and expect goodwill?" Panic rose among the workers as they sensed the troll's anger swelling. They had come to forge a connection between communities, but now they faced the wrath of a creature steeped in legend, a guardian willing to defend his territory at any cost. As Grulthak took another step forward, towering over them like an ancient mountain, it became clear that this confrontation was only the beginning of a struggle that would test their resolve and challenge everything they believed about fear and respect. In the wake of their first confrontation with Grulthak, the atmosphere in Eldermere shifted from excitement to urgency. The villagers gathered once more in the town hall, their expressions a mix of fear and determination as they discussed how to proceed. Mayor Alara stood at the forefront, knowing that the bridge's future, and perhaps their own safety, hinged on how they navigated this delicate situation. "We cannot ignore what happened," she began, her voice steady but laced with concern. Grolthak is not just a legend. He is a living presence who feels threatened by our actions. We need to approach this with respect and caution. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but differing opinions soon surfaced. We should offer him something, suggested Tomas, the young carpenter who had faced Grolthak directly. Perhaps food or trinkets, something to show we mean no harm. Others nodded in support of this idea, recalling past tales of how previous villagers had appeased the troll. However, not everyone was convinced. A seasoned farmer named Greta spoke up, her voice deep and resolute. Offering gifts may only anger him further. What if he sees it as a sign of weakness? We need to stand firm and show him we're not afraid. Her words struck a chord with those who had long feared Grolthak's wrath. As debate intensified, some proposed meeting with Grolthak directly to negotiate terms for building the bridge. Others were hesitant, fearing that such an encounter might provoke further aggression from the troll. The room buzzed with anxiety as different strategies clashed against one another. Ultimately, the villagers recognized they needed unity in their approach if they were to face Grolthak again. They agreed to create an offering that would be both respectful and practical. A large stone slab inscribed with symbols of peace and community, accompanied by food items left near the gorge as a gesture of goodwill. With their plans in place, each villager felt a renewed sense of purpose despite lingering fears. They understood that confronting Grolthak would require not just courage but also compassion, a balancing act between honoring their needs and respecting his territory as they worked toward bridging the divide that separated them all. Just as a sense of tentative hope began to settle over the villagers, their efforts to bridge the divide were met with a sudden, jarring catastrophe. It was an ordinary afternoon at the construction site. Sunlight danced upon freshly laid beams when an earth-shaking roar erupted from the mouth of the gorge. Grolthak, infuriated by their persistent presence, surged forth from the shadows like an avenging storm. The ground trembled as he approached, each step resonating like a cannon blast. Workers dropped their tools in shock, eyes wide with terror as they witnessed the colossal figure of the troll hurtling toward them. Grolthak's rage was palpable. He lifted massive hands, fingers curling into fists that seemed capable of crushing stone. With a swift and calculated motion, he targeted one of the newly erected supports of the bridge. In an explosion of dust and debris, he slammed his fist down with such force that wood splintered and steel buckled, sending a shockwave through the air. Screams erupted as villagers scrambled for safety. Chaos ensued as they fought against their instincts to flee and instead tried to warn others of the impending collapse. "Run! Get back!" Tomas shouted, but even his voice was drowned out by Grolthak's thunderous growl, reverberating through their very bones. Pieces of the bridge tumbled into the gorge below like dominoes falling in slow motion, creating an agonizing spectacle that left everyone paralyzed for a moment. Panic spread like wildfire among the workers as they struggled to gather their wits. Dust swirled around them while echoes of despair filled the air. The urgency heightened when two workers were caught near a collapsing structure. Their fingers grasped desperately to find footing on the shifting rubble. As Grolthak surveyed the destruction wrought by his own hands, his eyes narrowed, revealing a mix of anger and something deeper, an underlying agony about protecting what was rightfully his. But for the villagers of Eldermere, this act was not just a show of force. It marked a pivotal moment, a fierce reminder that any hope built on disregard for boundaries would find only destruction. The realization sunk in that their struggle was far from over. They had awakened a wrath that demanded not just respect but understanding if they were to survive and rebuild. In the aftermath of Grolthak's devastating attack, as the dust settled and panic slowly turned to resolve, a group of brave villagers stepped forward to confront the troll once more. Among them was Tomas, emboldened by his earlier encounter with Grolthak, accompanied by Greta and a few others who had spent countless nights poring over folklore in search of insights into the troll's weaknesses. They gathered at the edge of the gorge, their hearts racing but unified in purpose. "Remember," Tomas urged quietly as they formed a tight circle. "The tales say that Grolthak respects courage and wisdom. We must not approach him with fear but with a desire for understanding." Greta nodded, her determination shining through. And we should bring our offering, the stone slab and food. If we can show him we mean no harm, perhaps he'll listen. As they made their way towards the bridge's remnants, tension mounted with each step. The villagers collectively inhaled sharply when they caught sight of Grulthak looming in the shadows of the gorge. His massive form seemed to merge with the rock around him, eyes glowing fiercely like lanterns in an encroaching night. Grulthak roared again, his voice reverberating off the cliffs as he regarded them with a mix of anger and curiosity. "Why do you come back? Have you not learned your lesson?" Tomas stepped forward, holding the offering high above his head, his voice steady despite the weight of fear pressing on his chest. "Grulthak, we come not to invade but to negotiate. We acknowledge your power over this land and wish to find a way to coexist." The troll's expression shifted momentarily, intrigued yet guarded, as he eyed the offerings. Greta chimed in quickly, recalling the ancient stories that spoke of shared respect between their kind and guardians like him. "We seek not just passage but partnership. Your home is sacred, we want to honor it." Silence enveloped them as Grulthak considered their words, his nostrils flaring with each breath as he assessed their sincerity. The air was thick with tension. Even nature seemed to hold its breath. Deep within him, something shifted as he absorbed their audacity to stand before him without weapons drawn. A flicker of hope began to intermix with long-held resentment for those who had intruded upon his solitude. Yet he remained vigilant. This meeting could either mend bridges or shatter whatever fragile chance at reconciliation they had forged. As both sides stood poised on the brink of understanding, or possibly conflict, this confrontation would determine whether fear would reign or if mutual respect could conquer all divides that separated them. In the charged silence that followed Tomas's plea for understanding, Grulthak's gaze flickered between the villagers and the offerings they presented. The troll's fierce demeanor softened, if only slightly, as he considered their courage to face him without weapons, a notion that had eluded those who dared venture near his domain before. There was an urgency among the villagers. This moment needed to bridge the chasm of fear that had defined their encounters. Tomas took a deep breath, stepping forward even further, his heart pounding as he continued. "We understand that you protect this land, Grulthak. We want to honor it. We seek to live alongside you, not in opposition." A low rumble escaped the troll's throat. Was it a growl or a chuckle? Greta seized upon this flicker of curiosity. "Let us show our respect," she urged. "We can construct the bridge in a way that maintains the sanctity of your home. We will even leave offerings regularly, food and gifts as tokens of goodwill." Grulthak hesitated, his thoughts swirling like the winds that whipped through the gorge. He contemplated the unique proposal, a chance to be part of their lives rather than just a figure of fear. However, fragments of anger still clung tightly within him, memories of past trespasses washing over him like shadows. Feeling the weight of his legacy pressing down upon him, Grulthak slowly nodded. "If you wish to share this land," he rumbled, "then we must establish boundaries. I will not have my home destroyed again." The tension began to dissolve, replaced by cautious optimism. Tomas stepped back slightly and gestured towards their offerings on the ground. "We will draw a line here. This is where our building ends and your territory begins. We'll even carve symbols of peace into stone to mark it." As Grulthak surveyed the offerings and listened closely to their words, a slow understanding dawned upon him. In that moment, the realization hit. Perhaps this was not just about conflict but about forging a partnership with potential. His great hands unclenched as he turned to survey the gorge he had defended relentlessly for ages. When he spoke next, it was with a newfound resolve tinged with hope. "Very well. Let us see if your actions will speak louder than your words." With a tentative yet palpable shift in atmosphere, both sides retreated, humans back to their work site and Grulthak to his lair, each holding onto the fragile thread of trust that had begun to weave between them, bridging the chasm of misunderstanding that had long divided their worlds. With the newfound understanding between Grulthak and the villagers of Eldermere, construction on the bridge resumed with renewed vigor and purpose. The air buzzed with excitement as builders returned to their work, this time guided by a deeper respect for the troll who had so fiercely guarded the gorge. Each hammer strike echoed with hope, signifying not just the joining of two lands but the healing of old wounds. As the villagers worked diligently, they honored their agreement with Grolthak by incorporating symbols into the bridge that celebrated both their community and his legacy. The craftsmanship was meticulous. Intricate carvings depicting scenes of harmony between humans and nature adorned the supports, while offerings of food were regularly placed at designated spots along the path leading to the bridge, signifying their commitment to coexistence. Grolthak observed from a distance, his towering figure often casting a long shadow across the site. He felt a mixture of pride and caution as he watched the bridge take shape. For the first time in decades, he found himself challenged by a sense of community rather than fear. The villagers' efforts began to soften his once hardened heart, revealing a glimmer of hope that perhaps harmony was achievable. When the day finally arrived for the bridge's completion, Eldermere erupted in celebration. Villagers danced and sang under the open sky, their laughter echoing through the gorge. Tomas and Greta stood together at the bridge's entrance, filled with gratitude and pride. As they prepared to cross, they turned to see Grolthak approaching slowly, a cautious yet curious expression on his face. In a moment that would be etched into their collective memory, Grolthak stepped onto the bridge, his massive feet gently landing upon the wooden planks. The villagers gasped in unison but did not flee. Instead, they stood united in anticipation. Today, Grolthak announced in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder, "We begin anew." His approval infused an air of significance into their celebration. The bridge was no longer just a structure spanning a gorge. It was a testament to their resilience and a promise of cooperation moving forward. As he continued across the bridge alongside the villagers, laughter and cheers filled the air, a sound that carried not only across the gorge but also through generations to come. In that moment, barriers were lifted, and two worlds intertwined at last, paving the way for a future where fear transformed into friendship. As the bridge stood completed, it became more than just a physical structure. It was a powerful symbol of a transformative journey and the legacy of collaboration between the villagers of Eldermere and Grolthak, the once feared troll. The elegant arch of the bridge gracefully spanned the gorge, adorned with carvings that told tales of respect and unity. People from both Eldermere and Rivermore now crossed it with ease, forging connections that had long been stifled by fear and misunderstanding. In the months that followed, a new tradition took hold. Villagers would gather monthly to share meals and celebrations at the bridge. Grolthak became a respected figure in their community, not merely a guardian of the gorge but a participant in their shared lives. He would occasionally join the festivities, his hearty laughter mingling with the sounds of joy, dispelling any remnants of tension that had existed before. Children marveled at his size but were unafraid. They saw not a monster but a gentle giant who protected them. The communities thrived as trade flourished across the newly established connection. Eldermere's farmers exchanged crops with Rivermore's artisans, each relying on the other to enhance their livelihoods. Schooled in diplomacy and cooperation, the villagers taught their children stories of Grolthak, emphasizing respect for nature, a legacy that fostered stewardship of the gorge and its surroundings. Through their unified efforts to build the bridge and honor Grolthak, they transformed an ancient divide into a pathway for future generations. The tale of their collaboration echoed through Eldermere and beyond, marking a turning point in history, one where unity triumphed over fear and where mutual respect became the foundation for all endeavors. As people traversed the bridge daily, it served as a tangible reminder that true strength lies not in dominance but in solidarity, forever ensconced in the hearts of those who dared to dream together.